Let's move on. Let's talk some box office real quick. Now, Pro,
Here we go, folks.
I am not going to do any spoilers, okay, on John Wick. No spoilers. We're going to talk a little bit more about John Wick later. But for right now, I covered this in a video today. In that video, I gave my review, which is also posted as an article on That Park Place. John Wick, and this is still an estimate. I think this will go higher. I still think that final domestic box office is going to be maybe a little over 74, maybe closer to 75. It's one of these things to where they've been tracking it for weeks and weeks, and every time they come out with updated tracking data, it goes up. They revise estimates up. So that tells me that coming into a weekend like this, that trend is probably going to continue, and it has. At first, the domestic box office was estimated at like 70 and a half, then it was 71, 72, 73. It's changed quite a bit this weekend. On Deadline Magazine, 137 million globally, and originally they were thinking the international box office was going to come in around 40 to 45. 64 is what it stands at now. So there you go. And thank you folks out there in chat for subscribing to the second channel. And we're going to get to those super chats here after we kind of hit some box office stuff. But
Brian, do you think it's going to top 140 then? 140 worldwide is what you're thinking that we may...
My video today was 140 million global open. And if it's not quite there, it's going to be darn close. Part of the things that this movie has working against it is its 2 hour and 50 minute, let's call it 3 hour runtime. That is a big detriment because most people kind of like, that we saw recently with, was it Avatar? Everybody wants to go see this in a PLF screen. So there's only so many PLF premium large format screens out there. And with a 3 hour runtime, there's only so many screenings that you can book into those. The more screenings you tend to have, the more opportunities it is for audiences to show up, to sit in the center of the auditorium, the more premium seats, let's call it. You think about when you go see a movie and it's like, oh man, this theater's mostly booked up. The only couple of 2 or 3 chairs left are all the way on the edge, or I can't find 3 or 4 seats together for my whole family. I'll just look at another show. When you have longer performances, that tends to impact things like that. And then this is how we usually wind up with a very good set of legs on a movie like this, which is what I expect. The previous 3 entries in the John Wick franchise, okay, absolute astonishing when it came to legging out, all right? They all went 3X. And if you look here, the first movie in 2014, total worldwide box office was $76 million. The new John Wick just did $140 million on its opening weekend. It's more than doubled the first movie's entire theatrical global run in one weekend. Matter of fact, based on just its domestic haul, the domestic haul of John Wick 4 on its opening 3-day weekend is as much as the entire first film's entire theatrical run across the world. So
and with only a $100 million production budget.
On the new one, yeah. And the older one's 30 and 40 million. They really, when you see this movie, if y'all haven't seen it yet, you're going to see where the 100 million went. Very clearly. And I'm not talking about CGI post-production VFX stuff. I'm talking about these gorgeous set pieces they built were just stunning. And again, no spoilers, but there is a moment in there I just did not expect where the camera is moving through one of these wild fight scenes and it just pivots and reorients itself in a manner I didn't see coming, and you realize how they have the camera mounted, and it's just one of the most jaw-dropping sequences of cinematography and choreography married together that I've ever seen in my life. It was...
Well, and that's the sort of thing we've been missing at movies, right? It's all been CGI. It's all been, set up in some sort of digital space. So to have movies go back now where your jaw drops at how they did that with the camera, I think that's remarkable. And then, too, I want to bring this up because a lot of people are talking about this in chat. We've got so many that are bringing up the Mario Brothers movie and talking about how it's going to dominate April. And I do want to make this point to everybody who's talking about that. Again, we read your chats, even when they're not super chats. We care about the conversation going on out there. But John Wick 4, I do not believe is going to compete in any way with Mario. In fact, I would say that the better that Mario does, and I think this is a key point here, The better that Mario does, the better John Wick 4 will do. And you might say, well, how can that possibly be? How could one movie do well and therefore another movie do well? Well, think about this. How many people are going to say, you know what, take the kids, go have fun and watch Mario. You know what, actually, I'll go with you guys and I'll go watch John Wick 4 and we'll meet up afterwards. Because it's a completely different demographic. Possible. You can't take the kids to a hard R violent movie, but Dad can go.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you what, you'd be surprised. I was a little shocked, the kids I saw in John Wick 4.
I've learned not to be surprised on that one, I'll tell you.
Well, I mean, look, all three, I went again Saturday morning, and all three of the Renegade kids came with me. Now, the older two are almost 18, almost 16, and then, of course, Renegade Jr. is almost 12. Now, he has seen all the John Wick stuff. Now, for him, though, one of the reasons I don't mind so much with the John Wick stuff is because you're not ever concerned about an overabundance of really bad language. You're not concerned about an overabundance or really any at all sexual content that's in the movies. It's violence. And I know that people are like, value, that's kind of crazy. I'm like, well, understand something. This is something I passed along to Renegade Jr. like I was when I was a kid. My dad used to love to watch Murder, She Wrote. Remember that show when that was coming on with Angela Lansbury? And I used to watch, when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I used to watch that with my dad every week. Again, I was 6 when I said this. I said, Dad, how does Hollywood keep finding all these people that volunteer to get killed in these TV shows? That is
young renegade comment. I love it. Already tuned into that.
That is quite literally how I started my foray into learning about how Hollywood works and special effects. My dad was big into that, and he started teaching me. So I'm imparting the same thing, and I have been to Renegade Jr. because he'll ask, well, how does this, so I explain. So the bottom line is this. When he sees stuff like that on the screen, like in a horror movie or like John Wick or something, it doesn't flip him out. It just goes over his head because he's like, oh, Dad, did they use like squib packs for stuff like this? And he's looking at the technical aspects of what's going on screen like I do. So it's a totally different set of eyes on him than probably most other kids that watch it, because he's looking at it like, oh wait, we got to figure out how they did this or how the camera did it.
Technical side.
Yeah, that's what he loves. So this.
My dad loved the James Bond movies, so my questions were quite different as a small child, and usually the answer was, you know what, let's skip ahead, son.
Yeah, that's it. But Wick is just, look, this is a movie, all three of these films, and I want to scroll back down here, I kind of bumped this. I want you to notice that from the domestic opening weekend to the final closing of the domestic box office, from 14 to 43, from 30 to 92, from 56 to 171, what do you notice? Every one of those things basically 3x or better. So this is where this is headed for this final film, I think, as well, and maybe even more so because of its enormous runtime. None of the other Wick films came close to 3 hours. Most of the other Wick films were right around 2 hours on average, maybe a little over or a little less. I can't remember. I've got to go look at them to see. But none of them came in close to 3 hours like this.
I'm not thinking that's a huge impediment anymore, though. After what Avatar 2 did, I think that may have set us an expectation now where people are willing to go check out the longer movie again.
Yeah, and theaters typically, they kind of reflexively eye roll when they see these longer run times on films, because they know it's going to cheat them out of additional screenings and offer audiences greater opportunities, as I said before, to come in, to get the seats they want, have their families sit together. Think about the families that come in, like I did yesterday, with 4 and 5 people at a time, and you go into an auditorium that's mostly full and you can't find but 1 or 2 seats together. Well, you skip, and then you wait maybe till the next weekend, as opposed to a shorter movie that might have an extra 2 or 3 screenings a day, that you then find a screening that you can go put everybody together. This has been studied by theater owners. This has been studied by all the organizations. This is a fact. This is a verifiable fact. They know how this works.
How many screens is John Wick 4 on this weekend? I'm just curious. I'm thinking through my head that
it's about 3,800.
There's not a lot of competition. So
no. So let me go back here.
Cinemas are able to run a lot of different options for people where. Oftentimes, if it's going up against heavy competition, then the 3-hour movie can really be a detriment, because there's not as many options for the customers to find a time that works for them.
Yeah.
But given that number of screenings, anybody should be able to go to their local cinema and find a time, an hour that works.
Absolutely. And here to get 38.55, Shazam is still on a greater number of screens than Wick. And part of this coming in is because that is not going to happen next weekend. Part of this is because, first of all, Shazam is still sharing some PLF screens with Wick in many locations. Now, the theater I went to, Wick was on both PLFs in there. They had completely dumped Shazam into the back, smaller theaters. Wick had both PLFs, again, probably because of its runtime. And that is going to change next weekend because it's going to get some competition with this Dungeons and Dragons film, which I'll be honest with you, I haven't been looking forward to this thing at all since I first saw the trailer for it months ago. But supposedly, according to critics, it's fun and entertaining and good. I love Chris Pine, but when I saw like the soundtrack and the trailer for this, I'm like, this does not feel like D&D to me at all. I don't know if I want to. The tone of this is so different than what I would have hoped for, but we'll see what happens. The thing is with Wick, though, it's going to keep carrying. People will go back once they see this. They were going to, I have to go see it again. I have to go see this again.
Renegade Online.